This is part one of a series of experiments to find the quickest way to dry your washing for you. What I'm going to do is I've got set up here in a utility room. I'm going to ignore the tumble dryer that's over there. I've got a bunch of t-shirts and I'm going to put them through exactly the same cycle. I'm going to try and have a starting relative humidity the same for each. And I'm going to test it with different dehumidifiers and fans, and find out what was the quickest way to dry the washing for you. I'm starting off with the room relatively decent relative humidity, and that's what my recommendation would be to you. Start off with relative humidity in the 50s. Let the dehumidifier keep on top of it within your utility room, because you don't want to have a relative humidity that's up in the 60s, 70s, 80s before you start, so that you're starting off with a damp room. Keep on top of the relative humidity, and that's going to make everything quicker to dry anyway. So I'm going to get these t-shirts out, hang them up, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so that's 13 t-shirts set up. They just went through a rinse and spin cycle, so they're all relatively damp. It's an Arete 20 litre dehumidifier that we've got. Nothing particularly special in the setup, it's just there next to the clothes. Never put it directly underneath the clothes because you don't want any moisture dripping onto the machine. That's where we are, 55%, 22 degrees centigrade. I'll come back in an hour or so and we'll see how it's getting on. That's just over an hour gone, a few minutes over the hour. Relative humidity in the room has popped up a little bit, temperature remains the same. The clothes themselves are still damp, so we'll just leave them for another hour or so and then we'll come back. That's another hour gone by, not a huge amount of change in here. The clothes are still damp. Relative humidity on our display is 55%, so a little bit of movement there. For anyone that's sort of thinking, well, why don't you just open up the windows, you don't need a dehumidifier. This has been filmed in mid-October and it's absolutely been chucking it down outside today. Open up the windows, all we're going to get is really high humidity coming in. Temperature outside is not that cold. It's a bit colder than this room, it's not that cold, and all that would happen is the clothes would never dry because so much damp air would be coming in. So we'll give it another hour or so and then we'll come back in and have a look. Okay, we're 3 hours into the experiment now. The thinner t-shirts, like this one on the end here, more or less dry, not quite there. The thicker ones are still feeling a bit damp. Humidity's not really changing much at all. Temperatures moved by 1 degree. Another little tip doing this is keeping the door closed to the room. So windows closed, door closed, in order to make the air volume as small as possible for the dehumidifier to be as efficient as possible at drying the air, which encourages then the clothes to dry. So 3 hours in, now we can feel significant change. We'll see what it's like in an hour's time. Okay, we're 4 hours in. Probably 3/4 of the t-shirts now are dry. There's about that quarter of them that are a little bit damp just on the sleeves, and maybe where some parts are just slightly folded over around the armpits, and some of the thicker t-shirts, but we're basically more or less there. Humidity in the room, as you can see, is dropped a little bit as the dehumidifier has got control of the situation. Clothes dry because the air around them is dry. If the air within this room is humid, then the clothes aren't going to dry. So that's the job that the dehumidifier is doing here. It's encouraging the clothes to dry by creating a dry environment for them to be in. And then when the moisture comes off the clothes, instead of causing damp and condensation and mold issues within the room, the dehumidifier takes it all in and it goes into the tank. So we're 4 hours in and we're near as limit there. Okay, we're 4 hours 15 minutes in and everything's dry. So that's all good to go. So based on the information October 25 on the Meaco website, in terms of running costs, 26 pence per kilowatt hour. That actually means that it's roughly about 26 pence, 25 pence, having dried all of this. So pretty good value for money based on all of that. Let's see how that compares to the other dehumidifiers when we give them a go. Okay, we're 4 hours and just shy of 45 minutes into our experiment. Everything is perfectly dry, so that's all done. Humidity in the room is 50%. all agree. That's because the dehumidifier's got everything under control, so no condensation or mold problems within the room. The clothes only want to dry because the air is dry around them, so that's the job that the dehumidifier is doing. It creates a dry space. The clothes will say, right, okay, the air around us is dry, so they'll give off their moisture and they'll become dry themselves. Then the dehumidifier captures that, keeps the room dry, and this cycle continues. So 4 hours 45 minutes. This has been filmed October 25. Based on 26 pence per kilowatt hour to run the dehumidifier, that means it's cost basically 28 pence to dry this load of washing. So 4 hours 45 minutes, 28 pence. We'll see how that compares to other techniques which we'll do for you in other videos.